Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe once again. This time we're here to discuss one of the most controversial releases for the series and one of the hottest topics of this year so far. In light of the new Black Widow trailer coming out and looking amazing, many can't help but to think back to just 8 months ago when Captain Marvel was supposed to be this big, great, girl-powered movie before. Marvel was a movie we were told we all had to love, otherwise we're all sexist bigots. But now, we can't help but think back to that since Black Widow's trailer just came out and it looks awesome. Yes, I know this Captain Marvel talking point has been done to death this year already, but in honor of Black Widow upstaging the gal, and with this year winding down, I thought why not give this dead horse one more last beating, for old time's sake. Before we get to the Captain Marvel stuff though, we do have a bit of introducing and explaining about some of the new stuff. Fortunately though, the Black Widow character has been around the MCU for a good long while now. In fact, Scarlett Johansson first appeared as Black Widow almost 10 years ago now, when Iron Man 2 came out back in 2010. This was actually before the Marvel Cinematic Universe was even much of a universe at all. It was still in its very early stages back then. This was before Thor and Captain America came out in 2011, and it was before the Avengers assembled in 2012. Yes, Black Widow predates all of that greatly, and she stuck around this whole entire time too, playing an integral but supporting part in all of the Avengers movies and most of the Captain America ones. So, needless to say, Black Widow has been around the block, and since everyone obviously loved her, and Scarlett Johansson's performances were always sexy and incredible, and also the character was written in a sort of modest and sneaky and mysterious way, with her being a spy and all, well, that means we still have lots of interest in seeing what this character has to offer. So then now, after all of that build-up, we finally get to see Black Widow get her own movie, and fans are really enjoying what they saw in this new trailer that came out this week. Needless to say, this movie's gonna be good, and it's been a long time coming too, and it's a welcome standalone solo story for a long-beloved character. Now, with all that said, I think you can already see where this is going. As I mentioned earlier, the Captain Marvel comparison started popping up here right away, but not in a bad way for Black Widow at all. It's not like people are worried about that movie and thinking Black Widow is going to be a repeat of the Captain Marvel disaster. No, really, people are comparing Black Widow to Captain Marvel, saying all the things I said before. Black Widow looks awesome and it's doing everything right, and it's also showing how bad Captain Marvel really was in hindsight, and why the idea didn't work again all these months later. Sure, Captain Marvel, which was led by the star Brie Larson, well, sure, that movie made $1 billion and it was a financial success, sure, but it was also a critical failure and a creative nightmare, and certainly a stain on Marvel's jacket. First, you gotta remember what I just said about Black Widow, and how she's a longtime character who people always liked, and couldn't wait to see a solo movie from. And well, Captain Marvel was completely the opposite of that, if you can imagine it. Marvel was a brand new character who came out of nowhere, and it was made into a movie that no one asked for or really wanted, from the time it was announced all the way up to its trailers and the film releasing. Literally no one asked for Captain Marvel, and that's why it got off to a terrible and rocky start. Combine that with the differences in the main characters, and then you can also see why the movies are being viewed as polar opposites, and perfect examples of what to do when you make a girl superhero spin-off movie, like with Black Widow, and also we got an example of what not to do, like what happened with Captain Marvel. So, to drive this point home, as we go over the new Black Widow trailer and talk more about why it looks so cool, we're also going to go back to the Captain Marvel trailer that came out about a year ago, and I'll show you why Black Widow looks so much better every step of the way. First, let's talk about the main characters and their first appearances in their respective trailers. In Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson shows up in the first few seconds, looking at herself in a mirror, seeming disturbed, upset, or possibly vulnerable. Not much to go off of yet, but it is pretty emotional, and it's a good and compelling close-up shot. And judging by the music that's behind this scene, we could tell what we're about to watch is going to have a more serious tone. And as for Brie Larson's first appearance in the Captain Marvel trailer, well, she starts off by crashing through the roof of a Blockbuster video store, which is a cute way to show the movie's probably set in the 1990s, sure, but this sort of joke right at the beginning already muddles this whole project's tone, which becomes a big problem throughout. Then, a few shots later, we finally see Captain Marvel's face after about 20 seconds, as she turns back around in a subway station looking mad, angry, confused, or upset or something. I'm not really actually that sure. You see, while there's a lot more going on here, and there's great crazy effects, and they're obviously building this character up to be this super powerful, unstoppable, and sometimes emotionless, but right here in this frame with Brie Larson's premiere as Captain Marvel, well, the actress just looks bored here. And this is why Brie was jokingly called a plank of wood when all these trailers came out and the movie. It's because not only does Brie look bored, board, she also has the emotions and the acting abilities that are comparable to a plank of wood, a piece of driftwood, or a flattened stick that's fallen off a tree. Next, in the Black Widow trailer, we get some flashbacks to Widow's previous appearances in the Marvel movies, which we went over already, but it is important to remind people here in the trailer too. Refreshing the audience's memory like this also helps to build up the fact that this Black Widow movie was a long time coming, and it gets us all excited and finally ready to see what's going to happen in her backstory after all these years. Eventually, Black Widow bumps up and runs into another badass ninja fighter-like girl, much like herself, who we actually find out is Black Widow's sister. This is another welcomed revelation here, and it gets us even more curious as to what else we'll find out about this character in her own world. It's also worth noting that the stakes are more interesting here, since Black Widow is a more grounded character who can actually die, even though it might seem like she's sometimes in a over-the-top spy or action movie, but this is a realistic style still that also plays better, much better than the more out there and fantastic and intergalactic setup for Captain Marvel, which just isn't as relatable. Not only that, but Captain Marvel is also built up to be this ultra-powerful, unstoppable, perfect badass who certainly lacks any vulnerability whatsoever. She's kind of a Mary Sue, and she has nothing like the depth that the Black Widow character has, and she certainly doesn't seem like she earned her badassness. No, Captain Marvel is just simply overpowered, and she hardly seems to face any real challenges at all. Sure, the stakes get even further raised in Captain Marvel's situation too, and she faces off against bigger and even more powerful aliens and armies from other worlds and shit, but in the end, when Captain Marvel finally gets her powers under control, she still easily defeats them all too. And sure, that could be a badass thing to watch, it could be, but with Brie Larson's lame, off-putting, standoffish personality, Captain Marvel just seems arrogant and full of herself, and she doesn't come off as cool or snarky like how they're going for. And as for Captain Marvel's trailer now, sure, she has some shots of flashbacks going on throughout her life, seeming to be going through the time that she was a kid, a teenager, a pilot, and doing training and whatnot too, but these are all flashbacks within her own new movie, and nothing about her story is very interesting or too likable either, and it's hardly tied to anything else in Marvel besides some of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. characters. So while Black Widow is a super cool spy who was trained by the KGB and defected to America to become one of the Avengers one day without any superhuman abilities herself, at least not any in the movies that we see, while Black Widow has that awesome and amazing premise, Captain Marvel doesn't. Brie Larson's Captain Marvel is just some random Air Force pilot who got lucky and happened to be near an explosion that gave her superhuman powers. And not just any superpowers either. This chick gets Superman-like superpowers. So that means she's pretty much the most powerful being in the MCU, and it was all gained by her by accident. Dumb luck. She just happened to be at the right place at the right time, which isn't as compelling of a story as someone like Black Widow, who had to work hard and train to get where she was. And if you put all this together, I think we can all see why the Black Widow character is infinitely more interesting, and the actress is more fun, likable, and just plain better looking than Brie Larson too. Because when you compare Black Widow to the more boring character of Captain Marvel, who is played by a less interesting, less likable actor like Brie Larson, well, they really just don't compare. And that's pretty much the whole gist of why Black Widow's trailer coming out this week really made Captain Marvel look worse. But things don't end there exactly for this story. You see, now that the new Black Widow trailer is out and everyone is loving it and getting super stoked for the film, well, there inevitably will be some haters that arise on the internet out there. And these aren't just your typical average naysayers about this movie either. You see, since SJWs are realizing that Black Widow bested their beloved wannabe feminist icon character of Captain Marvel, well, that means the SJWs are now going to find ways to attack Black Widow, of course. And you'll never guess the reasons why they're going to do it. An article from the Mary Sue has more details. It's called "Let's Talk About the Fat Joke in the Black Widow Trailer." Uh-oh, sounds like the PC police are out in full force today. And I'm sure this has everything to do with them defending Captain Marvel in sneaky and underhanded ways, even though this writer appears to be feigning concern about supposedly offensive gags in Black Widow. Please, we can see right through this already. But you know what? Let's go ahead and read on anyway though and see where this BS all goes. Marvel has an interesting relationship with their male characters gaining weight. I say male because it is seemingly only the men who are allowed to have weight gain in Marvel movies, and in Hollywood in general. Sounding bitter already? It started with Thor in Avengers Endgame, and now it seems that Alexei, the Red Guardian, played by David Harbour, is the latest target of fat jokes in the trailer for Black Widow. When Alexei tries on his Red Guardian suit, Melina, played by Rachel Weisz, makes a comment about him getting fat. We don't know much about these characters and their relationship, but including this line in a trailer seems like a strange choice, especially considering that Marvel has an interesting relationship with making jokes about weight gain when it concerns their male characters. Dude, I think think you need to calm the heck down here. Sure, they've had a couple of fat jokes, as you say, and I would even commend this writer here for bringing up the fact that this kind of setup did just happen in Endgame with the Thor gaining weight thing, but I would just chalk this up to being a coincidence at best. There's definitely no larger anti-fat plan out there, pun intended, and there's definitely not some kind of secret anti-fat acceptance movement going on at Marvel either. They just made these jokes because they were funny, and they worked. And in both the previous movie and this new one, I and many others have gotten great laughs at this each time. The only people really complaining are biased, radical, out-of-control SJWs, like the ones writing at the Mary Sue, apparently. And this must be some kind of pro-fat acceptance type angle here. And also, just another way for bossy people like this to try and concern troll us, or act like they are the joke police. There's also some pretty simple explanation for why this joke is even being made, and the reasons why it happens to men more isn't because Marvel is sexist against women either, like what's implied here. Really, characters like Thor and this new Red Guardian one, they are based on big, strong, muscular, tough guy dudes, who at some point apparently stopped training and put on a few pounds. In both cases too, they never really seem to be extremely fat either, just a little bulkier than they were before, but this shows up more for them too, since they used to be all ripped and super lean and stuff. So that means the rest of the cast will inevitably make a goof on them at one point. This all makes sense for those characters too, and for their genders and body types as well. And this also helps explain why the same kind of joke isn't done to girl characters and it wouldn't work for them as much as well. First of all, girls don't tend to be all jacked up and super muscular like this. They don't have bodybuilder body types. For example, girl heroes like Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, or say the Wasp from the Ant-Man, they already start off as skinny and fit and lean right from the beginning. So without that muscular bodybuilding routine to keep up with, if these ladies did take some time off, it wouldn't be as likely to affect their weight as it does the guys. So yeah, with all that said, this premise just falls apart on the ladies' side completely for pretty apparent reasons, so the suggestion that not pulling this trick on girls is a sexist angle falls apart just as easily too. Imagine if that joke were aimed at Natasha. She probably wouldn't have even actually gained any weight. She'd probably still be just as small and skinny as Scarlett Johansson is, because that's how Hollywood works. More bitterness from the writer. Women can't have that growth. We can't be fat without that being our defining characteristic. I would bet money on this being a one-off joke and then never brought up again. Sure, Thor had quite a few jokes aimed at him, but in the end, it was still his journey and he was able to grow and find out what he needed to do for himself, whether that meant staying in the shape he was in or changing. With Alexei, we don't know what the future of Black Widow holds for him, but I feel as if him being bigger is not going to be his complete character arc. Very few times in films and television do we see bigger women represented without it being an entire conversation about them having to lose weight or that being their defining characteristic. And to be honest, that isn't fair. Life isn't fair, honey. I would love to see a woman who isn't stick thin take on some galactic beast in a superhero movie, but we'll have to see how Black Widow handles this, and also maybe we just stop with the fat jokes. It's 2019. Enough already. Wow, we even get an ending with a literal reference to current year. Someone called John Oliver. This girl's stealing his bit. And this all couldn't get any more social justice warrior here if the writer tried their hardest. And by the way, this article was written by a MarySue.com writer named Rachel, and I think if you check her bio and her social media pics here, we can see why she's pushing for bigger ladies to be in bigger movies, so to speak. It's because, like most leftists like this, she obviously is self-centered and feels the need to force people who look like her into everything she can, even when it doesn't actually make sense or make a good movie. Couldn't make this kind of bullshit up if we tried our hardest, but happily, we don't have to. I've found the cringe for us, and I'm glad to have you guys to share it with so we can all have a good laugh like this. What do you guys think? Did you like the Black Widow trailer? Do you think Captain Marvel now looks worse by comparison? And what do you think about the SJWs attacking this now too? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.